Let's dig in. King Richard, brand new 2021 release. Directed by Reinaldo Marcus Green. Previous director of lots of TV shows and Monsters and Men, which neither of us have seen.
No, unfortunately not.
So this is my first foray into this director, written by a guy named Zach Balin. This is his first feature screenplay, ever.
It's impressive.
It's impressive. If you look on IMDb at his profile, he has been an art director for a number of films. I think he has 9 credits on those. However, if you look in his writing, he only has 3 credits, 2 of which are ongoing, one of which is released, that released one being King Richard. One of those ongoing ones being Creed 3.
Yes, exciting.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. The film is starring Will Smith, the Fresh Prince himself, as Richard Smith.
No, Richard Williams.
I wrote the word Smith. I wrote Richard Smith.
King Smith?
King Smith.
Yeah.
That's his next film. It's a biopic.
Mm-hmm.
Richard Williams.
That's just his book that he released. That's King Smith.
Richard Williams, the title character of the film King Richard. Anwane Ellis as Brandy Williams, his wife. We also have Sania Sidney as Venus Williams, Demi Singleton as Serena Williams, John Bernthal, everyone's favorite Punisher, as Rick Macy, and Tony Goldwyn as Paul Cohen. This film is about the story of Richard Williams as he trains and mentors Venus and Serena Williams throughout their formative years around the ages of, I believe it's set over the course of 3 years. From when they were 9 and 12 respectively up until they are 11 or 12 and 14, something around that.
Very young.
Something around that, but it's very young, very formative years. And looking into more so the story of Richard Williams rather than just a biopic focusing on Serena and Venus, which is probably the most interesting thing this film does.
It's an interesting take. However, I still have my reservations about that as well. But I'll start it off right away. It's a well-made, well-acted, well-shot. Everything in this film is good. Good
as in the baseline good.
I would say that it is decent. However, I think the most problems I have with it come from the screenplay and the fact that this just feels like another run-of-the-mill sports biopic. And we have a sports biopic at least like once every year. And like, I believe there was, I think it was called Battle of the Sexes, and it came out like a few years ago. It was Steve Carell and Emma Stone.
Yes.
And it's exactly the same formation of a story. It starts that way, it ends this way, and it goes through the exact same emotions. Even to a push Eddie the Eagle. Eddie the Eagle is a fun, like, throw-on. I'd even say, like, it feels like an Easter celebration film, even though it has nothing to do with Easter. It just has that feel to it.
Yeah.
But as a story, it's exactly the same as as King Richard as well. And for that reason, I do think that all of the brilliant acting, all of the brilliant ways that it goes about trying to tell a story about Richard Williams, it falters ever so slightly by being just so pedestrian.
Yeah, I think I disliked the film slightly more than you did. But I find myself doing that with a lot of films we see. I am a bit more cynical than you are when it comes to this kind of thing. I did find the film incredibly generic. I think it starts generic and ends generic. It's like a fade to scene voiceover. Follow person here, go here, do this. Like you said, it's well shot, it's well acted, it looks good, but there's no style to it. There's no substance. You need more for a film like this in order for it to stand out from the crowd or draw me in or keep me invested. Now, that's not to say I wasn't invested. I was. The story is good enough, like you said. The acting is good enough that it does keep you invested and it is worth a watch. However, it's so lacking in style and substance that I find myself really yearning for more. Really yearning for more. Problems with the screenplay are there. However, it's a first-timer. I don't think they should have gotten a first-timer for the story.
No, yes, I completely agree with that.
They should not have at all. Another thing to mention is that Zach Balin is in fact a white male.
Yes.
Now, I know some of you may think that doesn't account for anything and shouldn't be mentioned. However, this is a film about young black women and their impact on other young black women when seen on television and within the sporting industry.
Not even that. There's sub-themes in this that are very strong within, I'd say, the first half of the film, and then for some reason they kind of disappear, but it deals with Richard Williams and the life of living poverty in those streets, and gang violence and all these things. There is those themes, and they're strong to start with, but I never feel like they continue on.
Fade. They do really fade. They fade. I think they fade going into more. As they fade, they disappear within Richard Williams and more so focus on Venus and Serena, Venus more than Serena.
It's a bit like, where's Serena?
It does go a bit one-sided, but Serena does get a few more scenes near the end of the film. But that it is a problem. This should be a film about representation within the sporting industry for black people, and that exists within maybe the first half of this film, but like you said, come the second half, it kind of disappears a bit. It doesn't really become much of a thing aside from one or two scenes.
There is scenes, conversations even, in which points are driven home that relate to, without spoiling anything, but there are conversations, and those conversations are the best moments in the film. It's not the tennis scenes, it's not the family dynamic or the fun or it's none of that stuff. It's the conversations, but it's the fact that there's so little of them, I feel, that it's quite disappointing.
There's so little of them, and at times you feel like they're almost not being taken seriously. For example, there's one particular scene in which Will Smith is talking to I believe it's three people. Two people are representatives from one company who are trying to sponsor, I believe it's Venus, and there's his coach. Venus's coach is there with Richard Williams, and there's this scene, and Richard is being himself within the scene and is deflecting them, saying like, "Oh no, you only want her because she's a young black girl. You're saying all these stuff when
it's a really good scene.
It's a really good scene. It's really well done." And then for absolutely no reason or conceivable notion whatsoever, there is a very loud, obvious, and obnoxious fart noise. Which is supposed to be played off as a joke in a scene that doesn't need a fart noise or joke.
No,
and is just absolutely ridiculous, and I laughed out loud, not because it was funny, but because I found it's
so ill-judged.
Because it's so ill-judged. It doesn't make sense. That happens again, but I can't remember where in the film, where something else happens like that, and I'm like, what's going on? Why are you doing this? Are you it feels like they're trying to make a comedy suddenly out of nothing, when the film is in no way a comedy at all. Well, I mean, according to one of the people in our audience, it certainly was.
Oh yeah, there was someone that was howling. They loved it.
They loved that film.
Yes. So maybe it is just us. Maybe we are cynical.
What did we miss?
Yes.
What did we miss?
But as you said at the beginning, the fact that it takes on the perspective of Richard Williams more so than Serena or Venus, that's an interesting take for a sports biopic. And I don't feel that we've seen that often when it's more so the coach or like the higher up rather than the actual celebrity. But in saying that, the actual Richard Williams stuff, I feel like they don't go into it hard enough. Richard Williams as a man, I would say that his way about of doing this, supposedly before Serena and Venus, before they were born, Richard created a 70 page document that was the plan of their life. Now, for some, I would imagine that this is absolutely not a good part of parenting whatsoever, and some of the methods that he takes, like making them play out in the rain, like tennis in full on pelting rain, certain scenes in this provide an idea that, oh well, is there something a bit negative with his way of bringing up children? And the only mention of that little way in the film is yet again one conversation. And I feel like there needed to be a little bit more of that questionable nature of, is this a good thing? Was this a good thing? And then allow that to go over your audience and allow them to make their own decisions. But then even when it becomes a Venus Williams film near the end, I feel like it's much better.
Yeah, which is funny. It does. It really picks up in that like final third act.
Yeah.
Not only from some really, really good performances by Will Smith and Owane Ellis, who have a fantastic scene together within their house, but the relationship between Richard and Venus becomes a lot more complicated and a lot more engaging to watch, and we get a lot more interesting scenes. And it becomes a better watch, but not in any way enough to save this film from absolute generacy.
Yeah.
And everything is pre-planned, everything's explained, everything, you know what's coming. It's long. It felt long, at least. Maybe dragged a little long in the tooth in some places and too short in tooth in other places. Scenes sometimes feel like they don't go on long enough. Sometimes they go on too long. I don't know if it's messy or if this was all intentional, but it doesn't feel intentional.
No.
It feels very much that something happened within the production of this film.
Sometimes it feels like a checklist.
It does.
It feels like there's a checklist, and it's like, well, we need to include all these gimmicks and all of these like cliches of a sports film in somewhere, and then it goes through the motions.
Yeah.
And it just checks them off, and then by the time that's checked off, you never see that little part again.
Yeah.
And it just goes through the motions. Even the actual tennis sequences, which I actually do think are quite fun, the watching the tennis sequences, but they go through the exact same emotions that you would find in any sports biopic as well. There's nothing really that feels different or unique about them as its own. Like I said, Battle of the Sexes came out a few years ago, and the tennis match in that, it feels exactly the same as the tennis match in this film. And I would have liked a little bit more of a just something to make it personal.
I would have
to
loved
make
that
it
too.
unique.
Yeah, it feels too generic for what they're doing. It feels like
because
they
it's
should have been
such
doing
a
more.
great story as well.
It is a
really
really
interesting.
It's worth
and
seeing
intriguing
for the story alone, which I can't say about many films. But learning about Venus and Serena was really interesting.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
It's a shame that it falters in some places. I wouldn't like it to get much attention at the Oscars. I don't feel it deserves it, even having seen not that many great films this year.
Will Smith is excellent in the film.
He is.
I think this is his best performance since maybe Pursuit of Happiness. So it's been a while coming. Yeah. But like we said, it's just the film as a whole. It just doesn't go for the impact as much.
It's of course at the very end of this film, as any sports biopic does, you get a montage of Venus and Serena in real life, and that montage of them over music is like probably one of the best edited and best stylized sequences of the whole film, and it's at the end.
I fully agree.
That style,
along with Beyonce's song, which I actually think Beyonce's song is really well made. I think it's a good song.
You heard it earlier if you're listening live. So I don't know. It's weird. I don't really get what was going on with this film.
No, and
it's very generic. It will disappear in my mind probably quite soon. And yeah, I can't see it getting. I can see it maybe getting some attention at the Oscars for the sake of nomination ways. Yes, but I wouldn't expect it to win anything. And if it does, I will be quite surprised.
Yes.
But that's King Richard. If you get the chance, go see it. There's not much else in this week. Coming up, there's a lot of stuff which we'll get into later in the show. But as of just now, pretty slim pickings.